Hey guys, welcome back to another Star Wars podcast. I'm Melissa, that's Matt, and we are here to break down the first 3 episodes of Andor.
Good intro.
Great intro. Efficient.
Intro. It's efficient. It's good. I appreciate that. It's good to be brief sometimes and just hop right in. It's been a while since we did a breakdown, so it's nice to be back.
Yeah, it is. Sorry, I have a different setup today, guys. It's not my normal space, so we're trying to make do with what we have. So please forgive it.
I gotta fix my lighting too. We've been having some technology issues. So just to start things off, bad news from my front. I accidentally deleted the file from my the 3rd episode reaction. I was trying to download it from like the server here, and I actually you know how you don't have to press down on the click thing all the way. Sometimes like you can just tap the trackpad. And it'll click. That's what happened. So I was like moving my finger up, and I must have accidentally double clicked the tracking pad on delete. And then by the time I tried to click X out of it, it was gone. And I was like, ugh.
Was that on StreamYard?
Yeah. So I messed that up. So no episode 3 reaction. But the first 2 will be up. I think the first one's up now. The second one will be up soon. But it's fine. I mean, I think there wasn't really much to react to, and that's not necessarily a bad thing.
I mean, here's the thing, to give the equivalent of your little mishap with your 3rd episode, I did not talk during the 2nd episode. Like, I was so quiet during the 2nd episode that I'm like, should I even post this? Because I didn't even say anything.
Yeah, that's how it goes sometimes. And I think we can get into that as to why I think that is in a little bit. But look, it's good to be back. It's good to have a new Star Wars show to talk about. It's been a couple months now since Kenobi, which is crazy.
It's insane. It feels like yesterday.
Summer went by so fast, which is nuts. But yeah, we got the Andor show. I think it was a little much to have 3 episodes released all at once. I think that was another issue. I don't know why they did 3. I was up for like late on Wednesday.
Dude, it took me 2 hours.
Yeah, it took me like 3 because I would record and then like something would come up, like someone would call me or something, and then I'd have to set up for the next one, and I was just trying to like digest it. You know what I mean? So it was a lot. And now one of those things that I recorded is completely useless.
So it's irrelevant.
Yeah,
no, I agree with you. I don't think they could have put all the information that they gave us in the first 3 episodes in one episode. At least I feel. Because I felt like they kept dragging it out for some reason. I'm like, you don't need to drag it out. Like, I felt like they could have been more efficient with their time and how they were structuring it. Because by the time I got to the 3rd episode, I was getting a little bored.
Yeah.
And I think that's because they weren't presenting us like a plot problem and then resolving it and then going on to the next scene that was efficient. It just really felt like they dragged in some areas.
Yeah, this is a theme with these shows that Disney Plus shows that I don't appreciate at all. Is like they're trying to milk it for everything it's worth because it's on the streaming platform, and they're trying to get a lot of streams for several different episodes, which makes it look better in terms of statistics. If you have 3 episodes that stream a couple million, it looks better than just 1 episode that is streamed a couple million. You know what I mean?
Well, it's easy to tell why they aired the first 3. It's easy to tell because if they had just aired the first one, everybody would have been criticizing it. Everybody, because of the pacing thing.
Yeah, I mean, look, so there's a couple things. So let's just jump into it really quick. I think we can get to rankings and stuff and the nitty-gritty of the episodes, but I think broadly speaking, to start things off, the 3 episode start was not necessary at all. 2 is fine, but they did the same thing with Obi-Wan, and you could have put those same 2 things in for Obi-Wan too. Just make it 1 episode. It's frustrating to have to go from one to the next. And I like knowing what I'm in for. Mm-hmm. Make it an hour. Just make it an hour and a half first episode. That's perfectly reasonable for a first season, first show episode. And I mean, it was an arc. You know, there's a 3 episode arc of Cassian and the security firm or whatever, and him kind of getting away from that and meeting Stellan Skarsgård. Whatever his name was, the
Luthen.
client, whatever. Yeah.
Best character, by the way.
Yeah, very good character. He definitely fits in the universe well. But look, if we're talking about pacing real quick, because I'll mention that because you brought it up. Jumping right in, I really like the pacing. I think Disney could use more shows like this where you're not just jumping from one thing to the next to the next to the next. Like I want it to be more dialogue focused, slower, more Game of Thrones-esque. And I know some people think Game of Thrones is boring. I know some people think shows like that are boring. I like shows where there's dialogue and you're paying attention to the politics behind what's going on and the character building and the relationship between the characters. I like stuff like that. But it was definitely, 2 episodes I think I would have been fine with, but 3 it's just like, okay. We dragged on that arc a little too long. Like, let's just get right into it. Have him in the Rebels. We don't need 3 episodes to explain how he kind of gets there. Let's just do 1. And I, like with that first episode, you can see my reaction. I'm like, okay, great. Good setup. We're just kind of explaining where he came from. Okay. But then it went on for another 2 episodes. And you're like, okay.
Where's this going? What are we doing? Come on.
This a little bit. But overall, I mean, like the fact that we weren't like jumping around so much and we're not dealing with characters that are like so iconic is good. It's refreshing for a Star Wars show, I guess.
Yeah, and to respond to what you said about the pacing, for me personally, I like slower paced shows. I do, with like an effective buildup, but it has to be efficient pacing. You know what I mean? So it's like every single scene is very important and is utilized correctly, and you wouldn't look at a scene and go, okay, we could have cut this entire conversation entirely. So what I think I mean when I say pacing is some of the conversations with Andor and Bix, in my opinion, could have been cut.
Yeah,
like we didn't need
for sure.
all the scenes with them. Yeah. It's like, all right, we have a scene. We know that they probably had a past relationship and she cares about him, but she also doesn't want him to be an idiot. And so like, I felt like there were a lot of those scenes. And then like a lot of scenes of, I don't know what they're called, but like the space police, like just like sitting in like the room and they're talking. And I'm like, do we really need this? Like,
yeah, like when the Scottish guy comes in for the first time, the big top heavy fat Scottish guy.
Loved his voice.
Like, yeah, I love him. He's like one of my favorite characters in the show. When he comes in and talks to the discount Tobey Maguire, like for the first time, and he walks in and he's like, I don't agree with what's going on here, sir. And you're like, it's the worst accent ever. That was like my takeaway from the second episode, by the way, which is Scotland accents everywhere.
It is. It's the planet of Scotland.
Of Scotch and Brits.
Where's David Tennant?
Yeah, I know, right? He just talked. He talked. They had this conversation, and it's like you could have gotten that done in one sentence. Been like, I don't agree with what they're doing either. I'm on your side. But then they just kept talking and talking and talking about the same
thing. It went
on
forever.
And you're like, okay. Let's go now. The points, not to say that, like, whatever, I'm not going to be super picky about it. It's just like, I agree with you in terms of the efficiency here. Let's get the point across. Let's not assume our audience is idiots, okay? Mm-hmm. You can have some inference here. That's what makes TV shows fun, by the way, is trying to figure out what's going on and not spoon-feeding things to your audience. And they didn't necessarily do that the whole time. But, sometimes it's more fun to have a conversation happening between 2 characters, and then you have to figure out what are the implications for the other characters based on this. They're not, like I said, spoon feeding it to you. And then conversely, on the other side of it, sometimes they just assume things that are Star Wars related, and they shouldn't. Like the Imperial Star Cube 7220 thing that
Rubik's Cube.
Yeah, guys, we don't know what that is, and of course they explain it later, and that's like, thank you for explaining it later, kind of. Like, yeah, it's obviously they're just pretty much saying a bunch of mumbo jumbo to make us think that like it's an important Imperial thing. Okay, but like, I hate when TV shows when they throw out some ridiculous made up piece of technology or something, and you're just like, ugh.
It's like it's like that. Well, it's like the scenes like in The Mandalorian. It makes me laugh every time. But like the scenes where Mando would go see, God, what is that woman's name on Tatooine who fixes the ships?
Yeah.
It's like Poggle the Less. It's like a P name or something. Anyway,
it's played by what's her name?
I can't think of the actress's name.
That's it's Amy Sedaris in Mandalorian, the one who fixes the ships.
Yes, Amy Sedaris. Yeah. Okay, so Amy Sedaris.
It's like Jar-G blank or something.
Right. So whenever she's like explaining, well, you gotta take the thing and fix the flux capacitor, blah 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 blah. Like, and I remember you saying to me specifically, you were like, I hate it when they use some technical Star Warsy jargon, and you're like, ugh, like just
Yeah, you know what I hate the most is in The Mandalorian when Gina Carano's character is in the it makes me cringe just thinking about it. In the Jungle Planet place where like Grogu's sipping his tea, and she's like, another flagon of spotchka or whatever. And I'm like, oh god, a flagon. First of all, I don't know if that says flagon. I think she does, but I'm like, don't say that. And then like spotchka, like, ugh.
Spotchka
like,
sounds bad. It sounds like something like a little kid would have made up. I'll take a flagon of spotchka.
Yeah, just say another drink. Just another drink for me. That's something we all get, you know? Or what's the other one? Oh, in these episodes, they don't call. I know in the Star Wars universe, they don't technically have coffee. They call it calf.
Calf.
I hate that too.
Yeah, it's tacky.
It is tacky.
It's really tacky.
It's not a special secret alien universe because you have something called calf. We know it's coffee.
Yeah, it comes off to me. It comes off very dumb, very, very dumb. And I do want to get into this because it does relate back to this episode, but I do want to talk to you a little bit about like, how did you feel about the overall tone? Because going into this show, I think you would agree with me that the overall tone of this series is very, very different. It's a lot darker. It's a lot more mature. It's a lot grittier. And there were things I liked about it and then things that really, really put me off. But one of the things that I noticed immediately, and I've seen a lot of other people say this, is when I was watching the show, I was immediately struck by how it felt like a random sci-fi show first and then a Star Wars show second. It felt very... there were moments, and in my reaction videos, which I have not uploaded yet because I haven't had time because work, in my reaction video, I found myself saying, like, this feels like Star Trek in a way. This feels very Star Trek. I've also heard other people say that it feels very Blade Runner-y. And that really struck me because as I was watching it, I found myself watching it not as a Star Wars show that's like inclusive of these Star Wars elements, but as like a random sci-fi show. Do you get what I mean? And how did you feel about that?
Yeah, but I kind of like that. I think that's important. I think one of the problems with these Star Wars shows as of late is they're too Star Warsy. They lean into these things too much, like the weird jargon and stuff that they use. And they use these iconic characters as crutches to carry the whole show. I think it needs to stand alone. I really like the tone of it, not feeling like that. Like because in order to get this show and other Star Wars shows to the masses, people who wouldn't usually like Star Wars, and get new Star Wars fans to subscribe to Disney Plus and to start buying into the movies and all that stuff, you got to coax them in with some normalcy, and you need elements of the show, kind of like this one, where it doesn't need to be like overwhelmingly Star Wars. I thought it still did have a nice Star Wars tone. In fact, I said this in one of my reactions. I like how it has those Star Wars elements, but it's not using them as a crutch too much. It's focusing on more of the characters, and it has some interesting world elements. Like I really like that planet they were on, Morgus 9, whatever it was called. I don't remember. But I see what you're saying. It definitely has a different tone and a different feel and definitely more adult, and I really like that because you need to do something different. Diego Luna is excellent. He's definitely the highlight. He's a very good actor.
He's a fantastic actor.
He's very likable. He's a good leading man.
He doesn't have to try very hard to be likable, which I like about his acting. It's very, very natural, very compelling.
Yeah, it's supernatural. I really appreciate that. I get what you're saying. I totally do. But I think you got to have different feelings for shows. I think like the pacing of this, like I said, was important. The way it's shot, it's more cinematic. It feels more like a movie-esque, which is great.
Hey, by the way, that's where the budget went. Mm-hmm. We solved the mystery of why Kenobi looked so fan-filmy.
Yeah, I know. I mean, imagine, this is one thing that annoyed me. Imagine what Kenobi could have been in some of these episodes if they would have done the same thing. You know,
if they would have given it the same amount of attention.
Yeah, just the way it was shot here. I mean, I love the set. Like, I really like the way they set this up in his character. You know, in the first episode. I mean, to me, this is all just one episode. These first three, you released them all on the same day. They might as well be the same episode. So we don't need to break them down one by one.
Nope.
But at the beginning, when he shoots that guard in the face, you're like, damn, okay. This is a good sign that the show's not going to be it's not going to be try to
Disney
appeal to the lowest common denominator here, to Disney. Yeah, It's going to do what it needs to do to tell a good story, which I definitely appreciate. The problem with the whole thing, however, and this was kind of one of my reservations from the start. It's a good idea for a show. I'm fine with it. So I like it so far, to be honest. Like, I do. It's an interesting show, and I'm looking forward to the next episodes. The problem with it is they've already renewed a season 2. So there's no stakes for the characters. Also, we know what happens. We know exactly what happens with Mon Mothma. We know what happens with Cassian. So we can fill in the gaps, and it can still be a fun show. But, like,
you know how
the whole time, the whole time we're watching this, you're not nervous for him. You're like, he's gonna get away. It'll be fine. Of course he's gonna get away. It's gonna be great. Because you know that's otherwise the story just ends. Like, and that can't happen because we already know how the story ends.
Yeah.
So, but I do think it's a step in the right direction in terms of Star Wars. The way it's shot, the pacing, using new characters, branching out a little bit, still using the Star Wars elements, but not using Tatooine. And not using Obi-Wan Kenobi or using Boba Fett, like characters we're super familiar with. They invented this new character a couple years ago, and they're making a show off of it. Now, it would have been more interesting if maybe they did the show first, and then they end with Rogue One.
Yeah, they announced, dude, this show was announced 2 years after Rogue One came out.
Yeah.
It was announced 2 years after. And by the way, the original plan, as I read, in an interview from one of the guys who worked on it. Maybe it was Tony Gilroy. I'm not entirely sure. Don't quote me on that. But when I was looking stuff up on Twitter the other day, the original plan was for this show to have 5 seasons, and they knocked it down to 3. So it's going to have...
I don't know how you do 5 seasons. Like,
exactly.
That would be crazy.
That would be crazy. And by the way, way too long. How long are you going to drag out that period before he eventually dies? Like, you don't need, in my opinion... I don't think they need more than 2 seasons, but they're going to 3 as far as I understand. So it will be around for a while. But I do have an interesting question that I want to propose to you. So, like, you're talking about, and guys, we'll delve into the episode and certain elements, but as far as you're talking about how the main character of the show is a newer character and they're not relying so much on popular Star Wars elements to, keep it on its front 2 legs, But... how would you compare this show to The Mandalorian, which has a standalone character that is extremely popular with the overall audience, while bringing in those elements of like Bo-Katan, Ahsoka Tano, Cad Bane, Boba Fett? How would you compare that, just out of curiosity?
It's tough to do because on one hand, I do like The Mandalorian a lot. He's it's a bit different because Cassian Andor was introduced before the show came out, like we were just talking about. So it's kind of different. The Mandalorian, that's the first we ever saw him, was in this show. Mm-hmm. There's a lot more mystery behind it. If this show would have been done the same way, let's say Rogue One wasn't made and they're like, we're making the show Andor, I mean, it'd be really interesting. You know what I mean? You'd be like, oh, brand new character. Like, people would still be really interested. Now, the thing about, bringing in all these other characters like they do in The Mandalorian, obviously we got to see Luke Skywalker again, and we get Baby Grogu and Bo-Katan and all these characters, which is cool. But in some cases, you and I have discussed this before, that can be bad because you don't want to just constantly throw characters in just for fan service. Although it is good, and I do appreciate it sometimes. It's like you got to be really careful with the way you do it. And if you do it too much, you're going to dilute what makes Star Wars kind of special and what makes those characters special. So I think you'll get maybe a couple Easter eggs in Andor, but I think maybe they're trying to use this as an opportunity to go in a different direction with their Star Wars shows and just try something new. And if they don't end up having crazy cameos, I'm fine with that. And I don't think that's necessary to have a good show. And that's part of the reason why I'm happy about the way this show's being done is like, it is important to experiment and go in a different direction. So I don't know. I mean, to answer your question, they're kind of hard to compare side by side because they're both very different. But I don't know. What do you think?
The Mandalorian just has more of the classic Star Wars storytelling. I mean, they made a really compelling character because of his relationship to Grogu and the mystery sounding Grogu and that whole lone wolf and cub trope, which Star Wars abuses. I'm going to be honest. They abuse that, but audiences eat it up.
Yeah.
And they've made him very compelling. And his interactions with the legacy characters, if you want to say, are fun. And they're interesting because he's a character that has like no knowledge of who these legacy characters are. So in that way, those interactions are super fun and interesting. Like the first thing he says to Luke Skywalker is, "Are you a Jedi?" After Luke like comes through and slashes everybody down. Like it's just like that's his awareness level. And so in that way, he's kind of the stand-in for new Star Wars fans. And I personally have a lot of friends who aren't into Star Wars normally, but The Mandalorian sucked them in. I mean, like even you and Beth, like Beth got sucked in because of little baby Grogu, and then she watches it with you. So like that, there was like a hook there. But I get what you're saying about Andor, which is like tonally, it's very different. It's very mature. It's taking a risk and kind of blatantly said in the first 3 episodes, you know, like this is not going to be the standard Star Wars story. But the way I see it, I think it can work really well for Andor. And especially like I really liked the first episode. I had a good time with the first episode. But I don't know if I would want to see them follow this format for every show, if that makes sense. Like, I think they'd have to be very particular about this type of tone when thinking about other shows, and I think that there are certain characters more suited for this type of tone than others. Like, the Ahsoka show, for example. I don't think it would fit with this tone at all. Yeah, especially knowing, like, her Clone Wars story, and then her Star Wars Rebels story, and then where she fits into the Mandalorian, and the Book of Boba Fett as well. And I think Dave Filoni is very stuck on that traditional George Lucas way of storytelling, which I appreciate and I want to see more of. Now, that's not to say that I'm not going to give Andor a fair shot or a fair chance, but one of my concerns when I was watching it, I was like, oh my goodness, like don't apply this tactic to everything. I think it will work for him, but I don't want to see it in every Star Wars project. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. But yeah. I mean, the show's barely started.
Yeah. I mean, so yeah, I mean, I guess we can get into the specifics a little bit in terms of doing our critiques, but like, I get what you're saying totally. But also like with a brand like Star Wars, you got to branch out, and it's such a unique brand with unique stories that you can tell. You got to branch out and tell those stories in different ways and try to reach different audiences in those different ways. One of the things that stood out to me, if we want to get specific with some of these episodes, the dialogue I thought was good. I have not been super impressed with dialogue of Star Wars shows in the past. A lot of times I let it slide because it's Star Wars and I like it, and it's corny because Star Wars has always been a little corny. But you want that dialogue to hold up a little bit better. And I think a lot of the dialogue in this show was good and well written, and it felt a little bit more believable than, say, in Kenobi. Like, you know, one of the things that comes to mind for me is Ice Cube's son in Kenobi, or Reva in Kenobi. Just like poorly written.
Reva's dialogue was pretty bad.
Yeah, and that's not the actress's fault.
No.
I just think the writing, it just wasn't super, and even some of Obi-Wan's dialogue wasn't amazing either. So it's good to see that. It just feels
like vanilla, like pretty vanilla in terms of like conversation. Like, I don't know, it feels like you could see the words in a script on the page as opposed to like two people actually having a conversation.
Yeah, and I felt the conversations felt a little bit more real throughout this. So I like that. I like the cinematography a lot. I like the darkness on this weird United Kingdom planet that they were on. Everyone's Irish or Scottish or British.
The planet of the Scots.
Yeah, from Scotland they are.
They are.
I'm from Scotland.
That guy, by the way, don't know what his name is, but he walked in and he spoke, and I was like, all right, I love this guy.
He's great. I love that guy too. Like the dialogue, I don't know. The dialogue was great. The story's interesting. It's different. You're right. It didn't feel super like overly Star Wars, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing.
Right, but it felt like a sci-fi show first, and then a Star Wars show second, because it's like, here's the sci-fi, and he's walking through, and ooh, that looks Blade Runner-y, oh, that looks like Star Trek, and then it's like the little Rubik's Cube of the Empire, and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot this is Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, and that was something that wasn't 100% clear to me, was what is this security firm thing?
I don't know.
The Empire's taken over they didn't explain that at all. If the Empire is like has complete control over the galaxy right now, this is well into the Empire, by the way. It's 6 BBY. So we're pretty far along. You'd think there'd be at least more stormtroopers and stuff like that. And look, they'll definitely be in more episodes, like stormtroopers and stuff. But that is such an essential element of Star Wars that I think you could include. And they didn't do a good job of explaining why there wasn't. Like, what is the security firm? Are they cops? Are they just like protecting the area? I don't know what they are.
So the way I saw it is they were like a third party working for the Empire. That's the way I saw it. Like,
I mean, that's kind of how I interpreted it too. Is like the Empire gives them jurisdiction over doing it themselves, and like I think they mentioned something about it in one of the scenes where they were like, "We got to keep a tight ship here so that the Empire doesn't bother us. They've let us like do it this far, you know."
Yeah.
And that's fine. Look, that's fine. But I definitely get what you're saying. I definitely get what you're saying.
Yeah, as far as the new character goes, the new characters, I mean, Andor himself is kind of still like a new character, but we all know how his story ends. But Luthen, that new character, I can't pronounce that actor's name. Whatever his name is, I can never pronounce it. I'm too afraid to approach it. Yeah.
Sarsgaard, yeah.
Okay, he had the best chemistry with Diego Luna. Like, every scene they were in together, I was very interested in their dialogue because their dialogue felt very considered and thought out to me, and I thought like Luthen's presence as a like quiet badass, like where he knows what he's doing, he's clearly done this like a bunch of times, and he's like, what's that line that he had? He was like, rule number 1, always like make your exit on your way in. And I was like, okay, he's one of those guys. Like, I really, he's got like the Western gunslinging vibe, who's teaching the young cowboy kind of thing. I really liked him, so I thought he
fits in the universe very well.
I thought he was
like
great.
He belongs. He's very well cast. I'll always know him as Bootstrap Bill Turner from Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
But he's great. He did a really, really good job for sure. Also, his mom, Morica Mavia, whatever her name is.
I looked up the cast because I'm not going to be able to pronounce any of these. It's Marva.
There you go. I liked her. Discount Tobey Maguire, not super believable.
Cyril, whatever his name is.
Yeah, the guy with the big nose who was modified his own uniform, and they made a point to call that out, like, hey, he modified his uniform, and then they'd never talk about it again. It's like, what did that dialogue have to do with anything?
Wait, that's the conflicted guy, right? The super,
that's the guy
like,
who
I don't know what to do.
Yeah, that's the guy who, like, he's mad because the guys died and they didn't want to look into it, and then he's, like, the antagonist for the first couple episodes.
I think he's going to either die an antagonist or he's going to eventually convert to republicanism.
Or his story's just over. I don't know. Like, that's the other thing about, are we supposed to like these security guys? Are we supposed to not? Like, are we supposed to empathize with them at all?
I think it's more so to just be like, oh, this guy really, really cares about his job. And it's very important to him.
Yeah, because I didn't get back. I got, like, Boy Scout vibes from him. But he's technically the antagonist of the story. You know what I mean? Like, he's like I'm going to do things by the book because I want to be right in my ways, but he's still technically a bad guy. But also, they're the worst security firm of all time.
Right next to stormtroopers.
They make them look awful. Like, they just trick them inside and out multiple times. So that was confusing. But I don't understand. Like, they were like, he's like, did you modify your uniform? And he's like, yeah, I did. I modified the pocket square. And
okay,
and
you know what?
Okay, is this guy into fashion? Like, what's
that?
What is this?
That must have been in episode 2 because I don't remember that line.
No, it was in episode 1.
Was it really?
Episode. Yeah.
I must have zoned out at the end of episode 1.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's what he says. So
yeah, he's
weird.
He's a little bit of a like, you guys didn't care enough. I can't believe you didn't care. Like, he kind of gave me those vibes. Like, I felt like a little bit of compassion for him, but at the same time, I was like, ooh, he's got like whiny teenager vibes, and that could just be his look.
Yeah,
but
he looked like a underclassman. He looked like a freshman in college or something, which was confusing to me. Like, I thought he was poorly cast. Like, he was in that guy's office like he's being scolded by the principal, okay? And now he's like all in charge, and he's like, find them! You must find them! I'm in charge with my weird nose, and I look like a CGI version of Tobey Maguire. And you're like, okay, this is bizarre. And everyone's listening to him like he's the least intimidating guy on the planet. And they even accentuated that point in the second episode where he's like giving the pep talk to his boys, and they're all like, that was the worst speech I've ever heard.
I didn't like the scene where He came into the room with that one other guard sitting at the computer, and he's like, how did this one person get away? And he doesn't talk like that at all, but he's like, how did this one person get away? And it's just like little scenes like that I felt like they didn't need to do because they already knew that like somebody had breached an area. And so I felt like there were a lot of
they were looking at their
scenes.
weird squiggly line screen, and they're like, look at that, what is that? And we're like, I don't know what that is. You're looking at a bunch of squiggly lines. And like that's, again, another definition of like these in sci-fi shows and movies where it's like, I know you're pretending like that's a computer. Just have a regular computer screen. Like, that's so dumb looking.
Yeah, I wasn't crazy about that. Who are the other characters? Oh, Bix. The girl that he was kind of... The girl... Okay, so I thought that, like, she was his sister at first, and then they got really up and close and personal in each other's faces, and I was like, oh, okay, they were together at one point, and now she's dating Tim with 2 M's.
Yeah, by the way, could we be more creative with the name, please? Tim, you have Bix, you have Cassian, you have Marva, and then it's Tim.
Tim with 2 M's.
By the way, he's from Scotland as well, he is. I'm from Scotland.
This entire planet is Scotland.
This entire planet is from Scotland, it is. And he just gets blasted, dude. By the way, I do not like that guy at all. He's very hateable. He's a snitch.
Oh, by the way,
loser.
Totally predictable that he was going to rat him out. Was like, oh, wow, shocking.
Jealous of it. Yeah, and by the way, his relationship with the Bix, like, first of all, Bix is way out of Tim's league, okay?
Yeah, she's gorgeous.
And Tim's a creep. She's sleeping that one night. He's just sitting at the edge of the bed, and he's like, I couldn't sleep last night because I'm from Scotland. And she's like, do you have any calf? And then he has this big, stupid, fat face. And who watches someone when they sleep, dude? So bizarre. He's just sitting at the end of the bed staring at her. Super jealous boyfriend. Tells on Cassian. And then gets blasted for some reason. The guards were being really mean. Weird character. Like, very weird character. I'm glad he got shot, if we're being honest.
Yeah, I didn't find him to be super compelling, you know? He was just kind of there. Like, he was
But he
jealous.
also, like, I didn't know that he was with Bix. I thought Bix, again, you're right. I thought she was, like, with Cassian or something, or that was his sister. And then Tim walks out and is like, oh, I'm from Scotland. And you're like, okay, he's dating her or something? I thought he was just like, I thought he liked her because she's like, he'd do anything for me. So I thought he was like a weird, creepy stalker because then he's like following her around. And I was like, oh, he has a crush on her. And then no, they're like dating and kissing. And you're like, this couple does not match at all. She's interesting though. I thought she was a fairly interesting character.
I thought she had one too many scenes.
Yeah, she wasn't like super...
She wasn't super she wasn't super like necessary, which is why I was like, okay, you can cut out a lot of these scenes with her because she's not really moving the plot along. But she's going to come back, obviously, and maybe she and Andor will have a little lovey thing before he eventually... I don't know. Okay, I'm going to go on a tangent here for 1 second. Did you... I need to ask this, guys, and put your opinion in the comments, but did anybody else think, and was it intended to make it look like Jin and Cassian were into each other, like, when they died? Because there's that whole like intimate hugging scene. No. There's that intimate scene where they're, like, in the Empire elevator, and they're just, like, gazing into each other's eyes, and there's, like, just music, but I'm like, okay, this whole movie hasn't been super romantic, but in this one moment in the elevator, they are like gazing into each other's souls, and it is very intimate. And I don't know if it's like one of those things where it's like we're gonna die, and so we're gonna
kiss.
Yeah, or is it like were they actually attracted to each other? Like I don't know. What do you guys think?
I don't know. I like that. I don't know. I mean, in that movie, I would do the same thing. Look, if I'm dying, okay, and I'm with and I had been on an adventure with her. I'm single. She's single. We're about to die. Yeah, I'd be like that too. You're gonna be dramatic. You're like, there's no way we're making it out of this.
Yeah, but do you think it was just that, or do you think they were attracted to each other?
I don't know. They're probably attracted to each other. Two hot people looking to smooch.
I don't know. So I had to bring that up, but that's a side tangent. As far as Bix goes, you know, I thought she was fine, but the show has a lot of room to grow. And then we have Marva, which I did like her a lot.
Yeah, she seems chill. She seems cool. Her story seems interesting. She obviously adopted Cassian.
She stole him.
She stole him. Yeah, correct. So that's a little weird.
Let's
talk about the flashbacks for a second. One thing I didn't like about these episodes, the flashbacks I thought not super clear in the first episode. It took me a while. I don't know if that was
No.
maybe that was really obvious. My brain's not been completely on this.
No,
whole week,
I didn't
so
find
maybe
it.
fault.
They
I'm like,
didn't
what's
make the
going on here?
transitions clear.
And
They didn't make it
there's
clear.
no translation for the Canaries or whatever. And I'm like, what am I missing here? Like, just tell me what they're saying. Why do I have to guess? And so it made it hard to pay attention to what was going on. And then after a while, after towards the end, I'm like reading between the lines, and I'm like, okay, so that's obviously him as a kid. But like, I just didn't feel like those scenes really fit in very well. And then
You think they would have put like a filter over them to be like, hey, this was a flashback.
yeah, maybe that was on purpose. I don't know. But like, then they go in and like his big sister or whoever that chick was, like goes to investigate the ship. And then gets shot from the back by some. Why did that guy shoot her? I don't understand. That's a weird reaction, in my opinion. Some Republic guy just shoots a native, the guy with jaundice, like whatever was going on with his face. So that was weird. And then so he gets really mad, sees his reflection for the first time, and just chills in there for whatever reason, starts banging on all this stuff. And then she's like, I'm going to steal this kid. You're like, what?
Well, essentially, I think the reasoning behind it was she was like, oh, the Empire's on their way to mine this planet, and they're going to kill all the indigenous people here, which I'm pretty sure that's what she said, something along those lines. But at the same time, it did come off very, very
weird,
bizarre.
She just drugs him and takes him. I mean,
and on that topic, in the beginning, like in the very, very first episode, Andor's like, I'm looking for my sister. And there's that little girl in the flashback. I'm like, okay, so if the Empire came in and killed all of them, how the heck did she get off?
Yeah.
And apparently she works at a brothel. So there's that.
Yeah, I forgot about that. That's weird. Yeah, you're right. Weird, just weirdness overall. But yeah, I guess like interesting. Also, the droid. I like the stuttering droid. He's chill.
Yeah. He's got good vibes. I like him.
Interesting new type of droid to have included in the Star Wars universe. I appreciate him. Whatever. I don't remember his name. BMO or whatever. B3 EMO.
It's like Toby or something.
No, it's B3 EMO or something. Like
but they just call him B, don't they?
Yeah. But
he's cute. I like him. It's like, oh, a droid that stutters. That's like me occasionally. So I liked that. I thought that droid is super cute. We'll probably get destroyed, and then we'll meet K2SO at some point in this series, is what I'm guessing.
Well, the droid didn't go with him. The droid's still with Marva.
No, I know. And by the way, at the end, I was like, okay, I get that Cassian is leaving because he got in trouble and he's being chased and he needs to get off. And Luthen's like, hey, I want you to meet somebody. And Cassian's like, okay, this is my only option. But I was like, man, dude, that is a really crappy thing to do to the woman that raised you. And that made me mad. But it's fine. It's just me being sensitive. But at the same time, I was like, come on, man.
Yeah, look, I mean, to sum it up, I like it so far. I've been very critical, but like I think overall it's been very interesting. I just think the 3-episode thing that peeved me the most. It's like 2 episodes. I was already kind of annoyed with having 2 episodes. Like every Disney Plus show now has 2 episodes to start where you could have condensed it into 1. Just condense it into 1, okay? And
Disney's always had a pacing issue too. They either go too fast or too slow. And in my personal opinion, I think like The Mandalorian has the most even structured pacing of all these new shows or live action shows so far. But it's just like they either just take their time and they don't need to, or it's like they're just not efficient, or they rush through like Kenobi, which only had 6 episodes, which by the way, I still can't figure out, because there's no way in heck you could tell a 6-episode story with 2 of the most popular characters in all of Star Wars. And it just seems to be a consistency, and that is probably one of my biggest critiques.
Yeah, for sure. I'm very annoyed by, you have awesome shows, you have awesome characters, and you're making them 35 minutes. Stop it. Stop it. It's annoying. Have an hour-long episode like an adult, okay? If you want to tell a good story, slow it down a little bit, include some extra scenes, pace it a little bit better, and make it an hour, okay? At the very least, they could have, because the first episode was, 40 minutes? The second one was like 30 minutes,
like
not including credits. So
40...
The credits are like
40,
5
30,
minutes each.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's about an hour and 10. That's fine for a first episode. Condense those first 2, and then if you wanted to give us the third, just make it the second episode or whatever. Like, I don't know. It's tough. But But look, overall, I'm intrigued by it. The way they told the story, I think, was cool. I thought the cinematography was great. I like the music a lot. I like Cassian's obviously a good character, although there's not a lot of stake with him. So I hope they introduce another character that has more risk associated with them, so we feel for them a little bit more. Because obviously we know what happens with Cassian. I mean, there's how many episodes left? 9? There's 12 episodes total, or 11, something like that?
Yeah, there are 12 episodes total, so this will be over around like the second week of November, I gather.
Okay. So cool. I mean, look, we have a long way to go. There's a lot of stories to tell. I'm interested to see what they do. Again, you have to remember, too, it's the first season for this show. First season for shows always tend to be a little clunky sometimes. I don't think this was even that clunky. I truly did enjoy it. It was interesting and different and new. So I'm hoping that they can continue that, and I'm hoping that it pans out nicely. And then maybe there'll be a couple nice Easter eggs and familiar characters in there.
Yeah, possibly. I did read an interview with Tony Gilroy, and he's like, we tried to stay away from fan service as much as possible with this show. So, like, that's, like, I'm fine with that. I don't really, like, care about it too much, especially because, like, as I said earlier, tonally, the way this show is panning out works for Andor. I just don't know if I want to see other characters in this context. If you know what, like, specific characters in this context. So, like, I am treading very careful water here. But at the same time, if I'm being quite frank here, I don't think the first 3 episodes gave us a whole lot. I think it was just like a very slow setup. And I don't think that there's like a ton to deep dive into or, oh, I can't believe they did this. And not to say that the show's not going to do that. I think there's a lot of room to grow, but there just hasn't been a lot right now to talk about. So, I mean, as far as like the first 3 episodes go, I think it was mostly about tone.
Yeah.
And I think that's what separates it the most from other projects. I can't foresee this being my favorite tone-wise, but I'm still, like, I'm willing to give it a chance. I'm willing to give it a shot. It's just that,
I think it's a pretty strong start in terms of being different. I do like the tone. I just like how it's different from what we've seen so far, and I'm a fan of that. And I think it was interesting storytelling so far. Like, it does leave me anxious to watch the next episodes. Like, I will be looking forward to it. My biggest problem is, like, we already know what happens. So
yep, it kind of takes away from the hype surrounding the show, and certain things aren't going to hit, and the show will suffer in some areas because it's like, what'll happen to Cassian Andor next week only on Andor?
Look,
well, he lives.
One of my first thoughts with this was, and you're totally right, one of my first thoughts was, I wish this is what they would have done with Book of Boba Fett, which is,
yes.
I kind of thought what they were going to do was make it darker and be more about the crime lord Boba Fett and what he does, and then have a couple flashbacks here and there. That would have been awesome, okay? That would have been sick. And have it be more dramatic, and have it focus on the politics and the relationships between the Pikes and Boba Fett and the Hutts. That would have been really, really cool. Like a darker, more cinematic type of show. And they beefed it.
They could even do something like that with Darth Maul, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, like,
people want that. Like, but I don't think that's what Disney understands. Is like, people would be interested in that. Like, we it doesn't have to be like boom, 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 boom the whole time. Like, we can let a show breathe. Like, have 12 to 15 episodes, which is why, again, I'm glad that the show's doing this. This is not necessarily a critique on Andor. It's just like, in general, the problems with Star Wars shows have been, it seems like they're afraid to go into certain areas. But, like, you have to. You have this franchise now.
Yeah.
Do right by it. Even Obi-Wan could have benefited from this. I think the biggest problem with Obi-Wan was the pacing was pretty bad. Like, every episode
writing
should have been an hour. Every single episode should have been an hour.
But here's the thing, to play off what you're saying, it was definitely the writing and the pacing, and just the lack of development. I have many thoughts on Obi-Wan now after I've watched it again, so like maybe we should save that for another episode. But I just prefer that Disney is in a phase, in my opinion, of quantity over quality. And it's very obvious to me right now, not just with Star Wars, but in the MCU. The quality of these projects they're putting out is just not good. It's not up to par, and it has potential to be great, but then fans are getting criticized for criticizing, or critiquing, I should say, a show because they want it to be better, and they know it can be better, but they know that because Disney's in a phase of quantity over quality, it's not reaching its full potential, and I'm really frustrated with that right now because I would prefer to go 2 years with no Star Wars content and then a project that is absolutely kick-ass.
Yeah.
And then go another 2 years with no Star Wars project and then another project that is absolutely kick-ass. And I just don't like this boom, 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 boom of mediocre projects.
Yeah, you're totally right. That's a really valid criticism. And this is why I know that Mandalorian's going to be good. We've had to wait a while.
It's been 3 years, hasn't it?
But I know it's going to be great. I know it's going to be a good show. No, it's been 2 years. But yeah, I mean, well, it will have been 3 years. I think by the time it comes out, it'll probably be December 2023 at this point. But I know it's going to be good, and you do have to wait for those things. But you're right. I mean, Disney's shown this time and time again with other things that they come out with, and it's also overwhelming. You become disinterested in the content that comes out because there's so much of it. I can't keep up with every single thing. Like She-Hulk, I could have told you that was going to suck. It looks horrible. It looks really horrible. Does. And like even the CGI, I'm looking at it, and I'm like, it looks lazily done. It looks fake.
What turned you off more, the CGI or the twerking?
I don't know. I mean, I haven't watched the show.
Oh, no. I was on TikTok the other day on our account, and the clip of She-Hulk twerking came up, and I was like, that perfectly explains the quality of the show right there. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Great. That's awesome.
Welcome to Disney. Twerking. We make high-quality products for our high-quality audiences.
Yeah. No, I agree. Look, it's an overarching problem, but I think this show's been well thought out. It seems like it has, at least, and it seems like they're going somewhere with it. I don't like the way that they did 3 episodes. It's like, guys, like, because you and I have to do the show. Look, the reality is we have to do the show. I was annoyed. I'm like, I have to watch 3 episodes today. I don't have all day, but like, I got to record this stuff.
That's
and then I accidentally ended up deleting the 3rd one anyways. So, yeah, I look, this is in some ways I miss old TV where like you had to be quality because there was so much competition. Now it's just everyone has their own streaming service, so everyone wants to have original content, so they're just cranking it out, and then you don't appreciate having to wait for the next episode because they can just binge watch them all now and or release 3 episodes at once, and I don't like that. But look, keep this topic on Andor, and then we gotta go. I am interested. I give the first couple episodes, I'll give it like a 75, 76%. So like 7.5. It was pretty good. I wasn't blown away. Like to get in the 8s is hard. To get in the 8s is very hard. To get in the 9s is like almost impossible. That's like best TV show of all time.
Sure.
7s I think is like, it's above average. It's worth giving it a shot. If someone asked me if I recommended it, I'd be like, yeah, give it a shot. I'd recommend giving it a shot, but I'm not like, you have to watch it. You know?
Yeah. No, my ranking's pretty much exactly where you are. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Was not completely blown away. I did find myself getting disinterested. I think that the first episode was good. I probably liked that the best out of the first 3. For some reason, everybody was like, so everybody who got the early screeners of Andor was like, oh my God, episode 3 is so good. You guys are not ready for episode 3. And I watched episode 3 and I was like, where's the thing everybody was talking about? Yeah. Don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I mean, the ending of it was good, right? It left you wanting more where you're like, okay, now we're off to the races. But I would have loved to see that happen in the first episode or 2, you know? Because, like, you're just telling the same story. So they're tricking you into being like, we're giving you 3 episodes. It's like, yeah, 3 episodes of the same thing 3 times, you know?
3 times.
Like the same story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of in the same boat with you. At this point, the show has a lot of potential. It can go in 20 million different directions. I think my interest will be piqued as soon as we get into the Mon Mothma area of things and seeing how the Senate is functioning, especially like with the Empire in a time when they are in full control, full power. So I'll be interested in that, but I'm not like, if I'm being perfectly honest here, I'm not like drop dead excited for next week. I'm like, all right, like let's just see how it goes.
I'm not drop dead excited, but I am excited to see where they go with it because you're right. I would love to see more stuff with the politics with the Senate. Maybe, you know, how Palpatine is running things or how that all works behind the scenes and just get a little bit more of like stormtroopers, Empire running things kind of stuff. Like kind of what we got with Rogue One, just more of the Rogue One world. If they do that, which I'm assuming they will, it'll be cool. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's a decent start. It's like a pretty good start to a Star Wars show. One of the best in a while. I mean, Book of Boba Fett was like, good, not great. You know, it's like decent. But I think this was probably a better start than that. And if we're comparing it to like the first episode of Obi-Wan, it's on par with that. You know, first episode of Obi-Wan, pretty much nothing happened, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see.
Maybe we will do a revisit of Obi-Wan. Maybe I haven't watched that behind the scenes yet, but maybe we'll watch that and then do a revisit of Obi-Wan.
Sure. Let's definitely do that. I'm totally game. Matt, where can people find us online?
They can find us anywhere they would like. Just look up *_wars_pod on any of the major social media sites, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Apple, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcast. Obviously YouTube, which is probably where you're watching this, or you're watching it on Spotify because we are on video on Spotify now, which is a fancy new feature that we were allowed to get. So subscribe, hit the notification bell, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. We haven't really been posting a ton lately. We got to get better about that, but look, we've been gone. We've been doing things, but we're back now. Leave us a comment here. Let us know what you guys thought of these episodes. Is there anything we missed? Anything we didn't talk about? We'll talk about it next time.
Oh, we do have a special interview coming up. We're not going to reveal with who.
Oh, right. When are we releasing that?
Probably be releasing it shortly after we release this one, just because it's in the middle of editing still, and I didn't have a chance to get to it this week because of my work schedule. So that'll probably be out shortly after this. Like
cool.
A day, I'd say.
So we'll say maybe Monday.
Sure.
Great. We'll see you guys next time on another Star Wars podcast. Leave us a comment. Let us know your thoughts, and we'll talk about them next week.
See you guys.
See you guys later.